Picture this. You're strapped down. Hard table, leather restraints digging in. You hear instruments clattering, steel on steel. There are faces peering down at you, medical students probably.
Right.
And your heart is just pounding. Not just fear, but you know a surgeon's knife is coming for your chest.
Right.
While you're awake.
Yeah. It's chilling to even think about.
And this isn't some horror flick. This was surgery, especially heart surgery, before anesthesia.
Exactly.
So today, that's our deep dive, this really brutal history of surgery before anesthesia, especially the heart, and how that horror, believe it or not, paved the way for modern medicine.
Right.
We've dug through a lot, research papers, historical accounts, articles, trying to pull out the key stuff for you.
And our goal really is to get beyond just the what, you know, the gory details. We want to understand why it all matters.
Connecting the dots, basically.
Connecting the dots.
Yeah.
From that unimaginable pain and suffering to the kind of surgical miracles we see today. It's a huge shift.
It really is. And just a reminder, you can find more incredible deep dives just like this one over at Mind Expansion Daily.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, head over there, like and subscribe if you want to stay informed and, explore these kinds of fascinating histories with us.
So where do we start? That early 1800s period. You mentioned the Triad of Terror.
Yeah, the Triad of Terror. It sounds dramatic, but it really defined surgery back then. What exactly were those three things?
Okay, so you had one, just agonizing, unbearable pain.
Yeah.
Two, bleeding you couldn't really control. And three, infection running absolutely rampant.
So pain relief, what did they even have?
Oh, it was primitive. Really primitive. Maybe a big gulp of whiskey.
Right.
Or a stick, like a piece of wood, to bite down hard on.
Yeah.
Sometimes opium, but often not enough to truly dull the pain.
Wow.
And in, extreme cases,
Yeah.
they might actually try to knock the patient out, like with a blow to the head.
Seriously. That sounds incredibly dangerous in itself.
Oh, absolutely. You could die from that before the surgery even started. It was that desperate.
So the patient experience, people must have been thrashing, screaming.
They were. You'd have assistants, strong people, literally holding patients down, pinning them, and the screams.
Yeah,
they filled the room. There's this account from Fanny Burney. She had a mastectomy in 1811.
I think I read about that.
She wrote about just screaming continuously from the very first cut. And she said the memory of that pain, the sheer intensity of it, stayed with her for decades.
Unimaginable. And then you mentioned infection.
Right. If the pain or the shock didn't kill you, infection was a huge, huge risk.
How bad was it?
Think about this. Surgeons often wore the same coats, operation after operation, crusted with blood and, other things. They didn't wash their hands, didn't wash the instruments properly. The operating rooms themselves often stank of decay.
So the outcomes must have been grim.
Terribly grim. In some London hospitals back then, the mortality rate from surgical infection could be as high as 80%.
80%. Just from infection after surgery?
Yes. And amputations. Maybe slightly better, but still hovering around 40, sometimes 50% mortality. It was a coin toss, truly.
And wasn't there some weird idea about pus being good? Laudable pus?
Ah, yes. Laudable pus. That's one of the most tragic misunderstandings.
What did they think it meant?
They actually thought that thick, creamy pus was a good sign, a sign the wound was healing properly.
But it was the exact opposite.
The exact opposite is a raging bacterial infection.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand germ theory yet, so they saw pus and thought, good, it's working. It was. Yeah, a deadly mistake.
So in that kind of environment, with pain, bleeding, infection, what made a good surgeon back then? It couldn't have been finesse.
No, not at all. The most prized skill, speed. Absolute speed.
Speed? Why speed above all else?
To minimize the time the patient was in agony, and also to reduce shock and blood loss. The quicker you were in and out, the thinking went, the slightly better the chance of survival. Precision was secondary.
Which brings us to Robert Liston, the fastest knife in London.
Exactly. Robert Liston. He was legendary. Famous for amputating a leg in, under 3 minutes? Sometimes even faster.
Stopwatch in hand, apparently.
Stopwatch in hand. Often with an audience of students watching the performance. Because it sort of was a performance.
There's that story about him. Probably not true, but it makes a point about a 300% mortality rate.
Ah, yes. The infamous 300% mortality operation. It's almost certainly apocryphal, exaggerated over time, but it tells you something about the era.
What's the story?
The tale goes that Liston was amputating a leg, moving so fast
that he
accidentally cut off his assistant's fingers as well.
Oh, my God.
And then, supposedly, his knife also slashed the coat of a spectator who was standing too close.
Okay.
And the punchline is, the patient died of gangrene. The assistant died of gangrene from the finger injury. And the spectator supposedly died of fright, or maybe also infection from the slice.
3 deaths from 1 amputation.
Hence, 300% mortality.
Yeah.
Now again, probably not literally true, but it captures that sense of chaos, the high stakes, the sheer brutality where speed trumped everything, even basic safety sometimes.
It explains why surgeons were maybe more feared than respected back then, like butchers.
Very much so. The term butcher was often used. It wasn't necessarily an insult, just descriptive of the reality.
Okay, so if general surgery was that horrific, operating on the heart, that must have seemed completely impossible, forbidden even.
Absolutely forbidden. For centuries, the heart was considered sacred ground, untouchable.
What were the main barriers? Why was it so off limits?
Well, think about it. First, the heart is constantly moving. How do you operate on a moving target like that?
Right.
Second, bleeding. If you cut into the heart, the bleeding would be catastrophic, instantly fatal, most likely.
Okay.
And third, just getting to the heart. Opening the chest cavity, the thorax, was incredibly dangerous. You risked collapsing the lungs immediately, pneumothorax.
So it wasn't just difficult, it felt like defying nature or God.
Exactly. There was a sense that it was crossing a boundary man wasn't meant to cross. Defying divine limits.
And just try to imagine that before anesthesia. Lying there, awake, feeling a saw grinding through your sternum, your ribs being cranked apart, seeing your own heart beating, knowing the pain itself could literally shock your heart into stopping.
It's almost impossible for us to truly comprehend that level of terror and agony.
Yeah.
Just contemplating it was a nightmare.
Were there any attempts to operate near the heart before the mid-1800s?
Only in the most desperate, dire emergencies.
Yeah.
Like if someone was stabbed directly in the heart.
And usually fatal, I assume.
Almost always fatal.
Yeah.
But then, very late in the 19th century, after anesthesia started becoming common, but before modern techniques, you see a few incredibly brave attempts.
Like who?
Well, there was Dr. Daniel Hale Williams in Chicago. In 1893, he successfully repaired the pericardium, that's a sac, around the heart of a stab wound victim. That was groundbreaking.
Stitching the sac, not the heart muscle itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Still a major step. Then in Norway, 1895, Axel Kaplan actually tried to suture the heart muscle itself. Sadly, the patient died a few days later. But it was an attempt.
Okay.
But the real turning point, the first successful suture of the heart muscle itself, was Ludwig Renn in Germany, 1896. He repaired a stab wound to the heart, and the patient survived.
Wow. So that proved it could be done.
It proved the heart wasn't completely untouchable. That was a critical psychological and medical barrier broken. But these were still rare emergency procedures.
Which leads us perfectly to the revolution, the thing that changed everything. October 16th, 1846, the Ether Dome.
Yes, Massachusetts General Hospital. A truly pivotal day in medical history.
What exactly happened?
A dentist, William T.G. Morton, gave ether vapor to a patient named Gilbert Abbott. Then the chief surgeon, John Collins Warren, removed a tumor from Abbott's neck.
Then the patient.
Didn't make a sound. No screams, no struggle. He was unconscious, insensible to pain.
The onlookers must have been stunned.
Completely stunned. And Warren, apparently understanding the gravity of the moment, turned to the audience and said famously, "Gentlemen, this is no humbug."
This is no humbug. Powerful. And that was it. The start of the anesthetic era.
That demonstration cracked the door wide open. Very quickly, others jumped in. James Simpson in Scotland introduced chloroform just a year later in 1847.
Chloroform, right. Wasn't that the one Queen Victoria used?
It was. She used it during childbirth in 1853, which gave it a huge boost in public acceptance, sort of a royal endorsement. Made it seem less radical, more acceptable.
And what about our fast surgeon Liston? Did he adopt anesthesia?
He did, and quite quickly. By December 1846, just weeks after the news crossed the Atlantic, Liston performed an amputation using ether in London.
So the fastest knife suddenly had time.
Exactly. He could slow down. He could be deliberate, precise. The whole priority shifted almost overnight from sheer speed to careful technique.
That's a fundamental change in mindset.
Absolutely fundamental. Even though infection was still a massive killer, that wouldn't really start to change until Joseph Lister's antiseptic work in the 1860s. Anesthesia alone was revolutionary. It allowed surgery to become less about brute force and speed and more about skill and precision.
It unlocked the potential for so much more complex work, especially coming back to it for the heart.
That's the key. Anesthesia didn't immediately lead to open heart surgery as we know it, but it was the essential first step. It made those earlier pioneering efforts by Williams, Kaplan, and Wren seem less like desperate measures and more like the beginning of something possible.
They laid the groundwork.
They laid the groundwork, yes, proving the heart could be touched. But anesthesia provided the time and the stillness needed to even contemplate more complex repairs.
When did the really big leap happen for heart surgery itself?
The truly transformative leap came much later, in the 1950s. That's when the heart-lung machine was developed.
Right, the bypass machine.
Exactly. That allowed surgeons to temporarily stop the patient's heart, reroute the blood, and actually work inside the heart on valves, defects, things like that, in a relatively bloodless field.
But that wouldn't have been conceivable without anesthesia first.
Not even remotely. You needed the patient to be completely unconscious and stable for those long, complex procedures. Anesthesia was the bedrock. In fact, there was a cardiac history journal analysis just recently, in 2025, looking back.
Oh, yeah. What did it find?
It credited something like 90% of the success of modern cardiac surgery, fundamentally tracing back to that initial breakthrough of anesthesia. It enabled everything else.
90%. That's huge. It shows how one innovation just cascades.
It really does. Solve one massive problem, pain, and in doing so, open the door to solving countless others.
And beyond the purely medical impact, think about the psychological shift, how people viewed surgery.
Oh, a massive psychological shift, from sheer terror to, well, at least some level of trust.
Before anesthesia, you said operating theaters were almost public spectacles.
They often were, especially in teaching hospitals. Students, sometimes even curious onlookers. And they weren't quiet affairs. The screams were part of the experience, haunting for everyone involved. Surgery was something you submitted to only if death was the certain alternative.
Compared to now, I mean, nobody likes surgery, but it's seen as a positive intervention most of the time.
Exactly. That same 2025 medical psychology review you mentioned earlier had a striking statistic on that.
How was it?
It found that today, something like 80% of people view surgery in a generally positive light as a necessary tool for healing.
80%. And before 1846?
The estimate was maybe 10% felt any kind of trust or positivity towards it, if that.
Wow. That's a monumental shift in public perception.
It really is. Anesthesia and the later Lister's antiseptics tackling infection, they didn't just make surgery survivable, they made it trustable.
Transformed the surgeon from that feared butcher figure
into a potential healer, a figure of hope, not just dread. It speaks volumes about human resilience, doesn't it? Turning that absolute terror into the hope that modern medicine represents.
So wrapping this up, we've gone from screams on a wooden table to the quiet hum of a modern OR, from a heart considered untouchable to pioneers daring to repair it, enabled by the silence of ether. It's an incredible journey.
It really is. That triad of terror, pain, bleeding, infection, it defines surgery for so long. And then step by step, innovation chipped away at it. Anesthesia conquered pain, allowing precision. Later, techniques tackled bleeding and infection,
Leading to trust and vastly improved survival.
Exactly. It's a powerful story of overcoming seemingly insurmountable challenges.
And standing here now in 2025, it really makes you think how much we owe to those early innovators, and maybe even more to the sheer bravery of the patients who endured the unendurable.
Absolutely. It's easy to take modern medicine for granted, but remembering this history gives you a profound appreciation for it.
It really does. This whole story, pain giving way to progress, it's gripping stuff. What part of it stood out most to you listening? We'd genuinely love to know.
Yeah, leave a comment. Tell us if you agree with our take or if something else struck you about this incredible transformation.
And remember, for more deep dives into fascinating topics like this, head over to Mind Expansion Daily.
Lots of great information there.
Definitely. Don't forget to like this, subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily, and keep exploring the roots of healing and knowledge with us.